Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Harbert, your host, and with me today is Mr. Matt Germain. And if you don't know, you should know. Find Matt on Twitter. He's always got some of the best insights on the Rays. Matt's been an analyst with them. He's been a writer for D-Rays Bay. You know, he's also been on Rays Colored Glasses, and he's been on several other podcasts. I know you had your own as well. What was that with, Matt?
Basically, we had a podcast named In the Tank. Myself and one of the people from Raising the Roof kind of got together and had it going for a while and interviewed a whole bunch of players. It was a whole lot of fun.
That sounds like it would be, man. And I love that In the Tank. And for some of you who may not be Rays fans, that's a reference, I'm sure, to the Stingrays that you can come in there and pet in the tank at the Trop. But how are things going? My gosh, man. I'm looking at this, Matt, and I'm saying, what? We got 3 games left. You know, the American League has been a lot of confusion. Last week, White Sox, they said, guess what? We're putting our banner here in the ground. We're posting it and saying, and we're going to take Central. We have this division. The Rays came up and they did the same with the East. Those were pretty well-defined things, but it wasn't until last night that we had somebody who was going to be the champion leader for the West. The Astros are.
Yeah, and the interesting part that I love most, and you can't script it any better, it's sort of like that Mike Brasso moment that he had with Aroldis Chapman, where it just scripted itself to the perfect ending. And the only thing standing between the Yankees and a playoff spot are the Tampa Bay Rays. And I mean, to get 3 games where that decides their season, that's pretty epic.
It is. And I was thinking it all along. I thought, well, guess what? Who could roadblock the Astros? You know, yeah, it could be us. You know, we could be the ones that doing it. So when there were 6 games left and the Astros are looking at the first 3 of those being with us in Houston, I said, they better find out what's going to go on. But I thought for sure that we would walk away with 2. And at that point also, man, I was thinking about the century mark, you know, the whole idea of now that we've already clinched the American League East, but getting to that 100 mark of wins. And I thought we would have already had that done our first game with Yankees anyway. Now it's in question.
Yeah, well, I've said all along that the Rays would get somewhere between 98 and 101 wins this year, in that range. And I said that preseason, and I've maintained it all the way through. And now they have a chance to do probably 101 if things turn out the way I think they will. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this weekend series for sure.
You know, and you can't take anything for granted. I mean, man, I listen to folks, some of the analysts, and say, well, we're looking here at the last 6 games, and I see the type of teams they're playing, and you know, they're kind of weak. Who is it? Let's see, the Orioles? Oh, yeah, they're kind of weak. Wait a minute. What did he do to the Red Sox?
Yeah.
I mean, what? So the Orioles came in and they took 2 of 3 with the Red Sox. And I didn't see that coming if you'd asked me that 2 months ago. I knew that the Orioles had a good, strong team. You know, you had, was it Ryan Mountcastle? You got Cedric Mullins, Mancini. You know, those are the ones that immediately come to mind when I think of them.
They basically, baseball's a series of moments strung together, right? And any MLB team can outdo another over those series of moments, just with a couple of ones that highlight the entire game. I'll give you an example. Like we just watched the Rays and Astros series, and the Rays outscored them 12-7 in the series. They only allowed 7 runs in those 3 games, yet they lost 2. So it's all about timing and things working together. And that's why the margins are so tight when you get in games with good teams.
Well, let me ask you something here too. I know I was surprised. And that first game in the series, it was like, oh, it was so painful to watch. I mean, you're looking there at the end and let's see, who was it? Was it Fleming? Fleming is up and then Chargois. And it's like, well, run after bases are loaded and you walk into guys to go ahead and lose the game. And that was hurtful, but I feel good about the team. That was just a very rough night.
Right. You have to, the thing that was encouraging is that the stuff was there. It just, in Fleming's case, the pitches were executed. They just found holes. And so that part, I understand a little bit more than Chargois. Chargois was more of a, why isn't he throwing strikes?
Yeah.
And that is a more worrisome thing as you approach the playoffs. But I was pretty excited to see Matt Wisler might be back, and I think that'll kind of sort out some of the roles and take some pressure off of him along the way.
I'm looking forward to that too. And it's going to be interesting to see who that team is in the postseason. And the thing that comes to mind is, how do you hold your cards as a manager at this point? You know, do you say, okay, I've got Shane Baz, Kevin Cashier's thinking, and he says, do I really want to play him before we get into the postseason? Some of these guys haven't seen Shane Baz, and if they don't see him, then maybe I have something I can work with if I need to fight these Yankees off again once we get into the postseason. What do you think about the mentality of that?
I think the first and foremost, the Rays make decisions as a team. They get the analytics in there, they get everything together, they get together. It's not Kevin Cash sitting in a room on his own, probably like you would think Dusty Baker might do. Nobody's going to tell Dusty what to do. He has to touch and feel for what the Astros may need at a certain point in time. I feel like Kevin Cash is more of the kind that will actually sit down with his entire group and he'll come up with decisions. Now, what's interesting in their case, when they're going the ALDS, first of all, they get rest. They get 3 days off. So I think the way they've laid out the rotation to end the season, we know the only thing we know for sure is Michael Wacha will not be starting game 1 or 2. That's the only thing we know for sure. Whether or not he's used in a relief role, I guess it'll depend on the situation and the matchups. But we do know that Drew Rasmussen dominated teams in September. He saw the Red Sox twice, the Jays twice, and Houston, and he was elite all the way through the month. So to me, he's game 1 starter. And then you have Shane McClanahan and Shane Baz in game 3. Now, they can change their decision in game 3, depending on how they feel the matchups work and what the outcome was of the first 2 games. But I do think they want Shane Baz to get that playoff experience. So to me, those are the 3 starters. And then afterwards, it depends on who they think is ready. Maybe Michael Wacha goes game 4.
I'm excited about it. I know in both Shane's, what you're saying, and Drew, my gosh, Drew has just become so strong, become so effective. You know, we all look at our team at the beginning of the season, and we should realize that isn't necessarily going to be who we're looking at the end of the season. And the Rays, I think they've had over 60 players at this point on the team at one point or another.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good thought. And I mean, especially when you look, I drew it up. I have a tweet that's out there about it if anybody wants to look it up. But basically, when you look at their staff, they only have one guy that threw over 120 innings. And that was Ryan Yarbrough, right? They have 4 guys that threw over 100 innings total. And then they were between 100 and 120. So they're really low when you compare that to a normal regular season. And then they had a ton of guys between 60 and 10 innings pitched. Wow. They had so many guys that came in. I think it was 17 guys that threw somewhere between there. They've found ways to find innings. Some of them were veterans like Rich Hill, which gave us the May of our lives. And I mean, you have to tip your cap to him. And I feel bad because now he's with the Mets and he gets to watch the playoffs on TV. Apparently he's coming back for next year to play for someone. So, but yeah, those are the kinds of things the Rays have been elite at doing, is just finding ways to get the job done. And you could read the script early in the season. We knew they were going to use veterans early and young guys late. And everybody was sort of on board with that being the case. I just don't think a lot of people thought it would turn out as well as it did.
Well, you say that, and it's true. I mean, as far as the young guys coming on later, the thing of it is, we look at the trades that Eric Neander's done. We look at the farm system that the Rays have, and it's not surprising, you know, to see these young guys come up and do so well. Got a great group of coaches who nurture these guys, whether it be in the minors or bringing them all up, working with somebody like Kyle Snyder with the pitching. There is such a good support system as they bring in new players or as they bring them up for the farm. I don't know anybody else that's doing as well a job of it as well as the Rays are.
Right. And I think it goes deeper with the Rays than a lot of other franchises. And I'll give you an example in terms of the Brewers, right? The Brewers tend to promote a lot of guys from AA to the majors for whatever reason. They have a really close relationship with that staff, I guess, because they trust what they're being told from that level, or they're more eager to get the guys up that have the most talent, and they just happen to be in Double-A. In the Rays case, there's a reason that they did the Zoom stream with the Durham guys, because I don't think they're getting enough credit in Durham for the way they do the groundwork in turning a lot of those guys around. A lot of those guys that we're seeing, like Drew Rasmussen, went down to Durham and did the majority of their tinkering with how they approach things in Durham. Same way with a lot of the position players. Like, they're doing the base that Franco got in Durham helped him achieve what he's achieving this year. So we have to give a lot of credit to Durham, and they're showing it now in the final stretch. They're 7-0. I think they're going to end up, having a good shot at 10-0. They have Tobias Myers going up today. So it's going to be interesting to see how that finishes up too.
Well, I'm excited about it. I know anybody who's watching the Rays are, and to see that nurturing at Durham. I've often said if I was going to live in another city that with a ball team, it wouldn't have to be major league. I would go to Durham. That's like an exciting place to see the birth or the training of new talent. The biggest challenge is you're there in your local team. If they're getting great, you're not going to see them for very long.
Well, you say that, but this year I would say they've had an MLB caliber team the whole season.
True.
Just because of the way the system's gone. So I would definitely get season tickets if I was in Durham and could afford it. Now, that's for sure, 100%.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of season tickets, not season tickets, but I understood from a tweet from the Rays a little while ago today that postseason tickets are already going on sale for games there at the Trop. So that should be exciting.
Right. I took a look at what was available, just like haphazardly go through the stadium and see what was left. And day 2 sales especially are really strong. Day 1 a little bit lighter, but I think they'll get there. It seems like it'll be a well-attended series for sure in the ALDS. And why not, right? The tickets are affordable, and the team is elite. You're going to see a phenom in his first playoff series. He's not going to be on the sidelines like last year. So I think you're going to see a new level of Wander Franco in the playoffs. He's going to want to show up right away and make a statement. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
It is. And I've had good fortune in the past to go to a postseason game with the Rays, and the sound in there can be deafening. Whether it was Kiermaier making a great play out in center field, G-Man Choi, maybe he was hitting a home run. There were times I basically felt like I lost my hearing. There was just like white noise there. So folks, make sure that you take your earplugs, your cowbell, on all your Ray gear out there for the games here in the postseason of the Trop. You're going to have a great time.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping that the series is going to be against a rival that people will actually appreciate. I'm foreseeing, if it were the Rays and the Mariners, I think that the attention on a national level might be a little bit lighter than it would be if it was the Yankees or even the Jays. So it'll be interesting to see who their opponent is. Who do you have going against them based on what's left?
Well, I'm glad you asked it, because looking at those teams, if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago, I would say Toronto. But the Yankees have just come back so strong, in the last week or so. I mean, they completely took it. Was it the Red Sox? Yeah. But then I see Garrett Cole really suffering the other day. So I don't know. And was it Robbie Ray? Okay. Robbie Ray with the Blue Jays. I said, that guy, he's insurmountable. And then last night he gets his teeth kicked in by the Yankees. He had 3 home runs against him in 1 inning. Okay. I'm going to go with a team I thought wasn't going to be doing even anywhere near here. I'm going to say we're going to be facing the Red Sox just for insanity.
Now, I don't think it's an insane thought at all, because I can definitely see the Rays taking 2 of 3 from the Yankees. So if that's the case, at a minimum, I'm going to even see a sweep being possible, because like you said, that Gerrit Cole's their best starter. They're not going to see him. He's not going to be in the series. And if they do, it's on short rest. That's going to just wear him down even more. So Severino might be the Sunday starter. We don't know what to expect from him. We don't know if he's stretched out well enough to be a starter. The 2 starts before that, they're going to see Montgomery, and they're going to see, who's the guy tonight starting? I'm drawing a blank. It's Cortez. Nestor Cortez is going up, and they've seen both of them. Now, they both had success against them, but the Rays were able to wear them down to the point where they got them out of the game early. And to me, that is the key. The pen for the Yankees is very stretched out. Like Chad Green and the whole group have already exceeded their highest innings pitched in the season. So when Aaron Boone's looking down the line and throwing guys out there, he's leaning a lot on Severino and Holmes and Germain now, because they're the guys who are fresh, who are just at it, and he can actually count on, because the rest of the guys look like they're just beaten up. And that begs the other question. Let's say the Yankees do somehow get into the playoffs. How are they going to look pen-wise when their guys are already on gas? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting time.
I don't know either, brother. I tell you, but like I said, it's exciting. And looking, like I said, the Rays got their last 3 games at Yankee Stadium. The Red Sox, they're going to be with the Nationals, and they're going to be at the National Stadium. Let's see what else. Oh, Mariners playing the Angels, so I think they got a chance. Toronto, the Orioles, and while I was kind of kidding earlier about some teams not being up to snuff, you look at the Orioles, you look at the Detroit Tigers, what they've done as far as coming back. You look at the Cardinals. Yeah. You look at the Cardinals, a team that had Fangraphs was giving like 2.5% of chance at the beginning of September, saying, "Oh yeah, they got 2.5% chance of making the playoffs." To bam, there they are. Mm-hmm. It's crazy times, my friend.
It is. And the other thing to note, like you said, the series lined up the way they are, you can definitely see the Jays sweeping the Nationals and the Mariners sweeping the Angels and the Rays sweeping the Yankees, in which case you have the Mariners and the Jays squeaking into the playoffs for the wild card game, and both the Red Sox and Yankees sitting at home. I mean, wouldn't that be something?
It's a crazy year, Matt. It's absolutely insane. I don't know, and I think a lot of people thought Oakland, would be possibly here, but they fell out too, man. So it's an exciting time for American League.
That Chris Bassett injury just hurt them so much.
Oh yeah,
it took the soul right out of that team.
Well, it was interesting watching the Astros celebrate last night. I hated that we were the one who gave them the opportunity to get the AL West rather, but it was fun watching Dusty Baker. I love watching Dusty Baker anyway, but there he is. He's been wearing that good mask all year long, and they're celebrating. Not only does he have his mask off, he's pouring champagne, or has poured champagne into a shoe and drinking out of the shoe. And it's like, oh, I understand the tradition, but I think I'd pass on that one.
Yeah, I'm not an adopter of the shoe champagne for sure.
It's crazy stuff, I tell you. I got to say, going back to Toronto, I'm really curious to see how they're going to do. This is a team who has so much strength offensively. You look, whether you're looking at Gurriel, you're looking at Vlad Jr., if you're looking at Marcus Semien, who are you looking at? Anybody. There's so much strength out there. I really thought they would do better last night with Robbie Ray at the mound. So I don't know.
They had their own future in their hands, and they kind of this whole month really, and they've kind of fell flat the majority of the times that they've been asked to press for wins. So that's a little underwhelming, especially when they had the playoff experience of last year. They had brought in Springer and Semien, who both have good playoff experience. They brought in Berrios, who's been doing great for them.
Oh yeah.
But I have a lot of Jays, friends on Twitter and guys that I used to write with. And I tell them all the time, like, the Jays made their pitching moves 2 weeks too late. If they had done that Berrios move 2 weeks beforehand, they would be in the spot right now. They would have locked it up. So it's too bad that their front office was so, I don't want to say lazy, but reactive, like kind of waiting till the very end before making that dive. And I don't know why. Like, you look at Alex Anthopoulos, if he would have waited as long, the Braves would not be in a playoff position right now. Like, you've got to be proactive in addressing your holes. And I feel like the Jays waited a little bit too long.
So, so we're going to see, man, this wild card still up. 3 games left, and something new is being decided every night. So I'm excited about the American League. Just a quick glance at the National League, because that's a whole other beast that we could talk about for quite a bit. But looking at the National League, it's interesting to see that there is not a National League West champion yet, and yet 2 teams have well over 100 wins for this season. That still is mind-numbing to me.
Yeah, and I have to be honest here. I am not a fan of the Dodgers. I've seen enough of the Dodgers. They've been in the playoffs enough. I'm hoping that they're 1-out. Whoever they play, I don't really care. They've thrown an obscene amount of money to their roster this year. They're kind of like that team that just is trying to buy a championship the same way that the Red Sox did a few years ago. And it doesn't leave the same feeling when you watch that team win. I mean, the Brewers go off and win the World Series this year. I will clap for them. I'll be happy for them. And I'll think that they did it in a great way. The Dodgers, not so much. But I would say it's interesting when you look at all the contenders across Major League Baseball. And I don't know if you've looked at this, how many of the contenders have links, clear direct links to recent Rays.
Oh, yeah.
Friedman in LA. You've got Click in the Astros. You've got Arnold with the Brewers. You've got Bloom with the Red Sox. You've got the Rays. And I mean, every single place. And then if you go to Atlanta, you've got Darno, Morton. You have a lot of links to the Rays as a whole. Honestly, and then you got Longoria in San Francisco and even Jake McGee. So there's always something Rays-like to cheer for with every single team in the playoffs this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just avoid the White Sox. That's all I'm going to say.
I got to agree with you there too. I know it's fun because I was talking about doing a future episode upcoming on the X-Rays. And, and looking there, like saying in Milwaukee, the best thing that ever happened to Adames was getting traded. I love him, hated to see him go, but it's been the best thing in the world for him. You see Eric Neander's fingerprints everywhere. But Charlie Morton, I was surprised to see him and Darno go, but I know we're not going to pay much. I mean, we almost saw Zunino go, but we actually paid him less than we did last year. But a lot of these great players that we see elsewhere, I mean, they either started here or they stopped here. When we're looking at the Rays again too, there's been a sense that we need a veteran on the team. So we had Charlie Morton. That was great. He gave him some guidance and he was gone. We bring Rich Hill in. And I said, oh my gosh, you're getting rid of Rich. Oh, we're getting Nelson Cruz. There's another, veteran who can kind of uplift the team, give them a little bit more sense of the history of the game. And I think a pride as well to be side by side with a giant like that.
Yeah, it helps smooth the valleys is basically the way I see veteran presences, right? So you'll still get the ups and downs of a baseball season, but they won't be as steep on both ends.
Yeah.
And that's what Charlie Morton was to the Rays pitching staff. And it's great. I keep telling people they look at Joe Ryan and Drew Strotman as the cost of that trade. I'm like, guys, Nelson Cruz and what he's preaching to that entire lineup and all those young players is going to last decades. And it's going to feed that machine that they have. And I'm actually of the mind right now that when I look at the Rays and I look at their minor league system and I look at the whole machine of costs, right? They are building a dynasty. They are really building a dynasty. You could foresee the Rays having the tools to build a perennial winner, sort of like what you've seen with the Dodgers, for the next 8 to 10 years being consistently in the playoffs. I can't see a team matching them at all. And that's despite all the talent that they've thrown around the league. I mean, they've thrown around more. Just to give you an example, they had 4 top 100 prospects in their 2018 class. You know how hard it is to pick 4 top 100 prospects in one draft class? That's insane. So when you're able to do that, you're feeding a machine that's just going 100 miles an hour and is unstoppable, to be quite honest. Like they can literally do anything they want. They can dream it. It happens. You want to go get Ketel Marte? Go do it. You've got the prospects to do it. Like it doesn't matter. It's just, so when you're sitting there as Eric Neander, of course you sign back on. You just built this dynasty machine. You're not going anywhere. You're going to ride this train until it runs out of coal.
Yeah. And Neander has definitely got it going, early on, it's like, who is this guy trading Longoria?
One of his first moves. Yeah.
But man, I've come to love him. It just took me a little while. Oh my gosh. Oh, Matt, this has been great, brother. I love talking to you. You've always got a lot to share with folks. And, the one place to talk about where they can see the most is on Twitter. And what's your handle there again?
It's at Matt, M-A-T, underscore Germain underscore.
If you want to stay on top of what's going on with baseball and certainly the Rays, Matt is the guy to do it. And Matt, you do a lot as far as the prospects. I love reading you, and I can't wait to see in the offseason what you're putting up there, because there's a lot of information about those prospects that you were just talking about. That's a very exciting part of the game for me. And I think it is for a lot of other fans to say, what's next? And you've got your finger on the pulse of it.
I try my best, and hopefully it has a purpose somewhere out there. That's all I have to say.
Well, you are, as far as keeping us fans who are very much involved with the team, help giving us that extra insight. So again, Matt, thank you again for joining us today on Baseball Biz. We've been talking with Matt Germain, special analyst expertise, special analyst and expert, all about the Rays and more when it comes to baseball. And we're glad to have him here. Man, here it is, the last 3 games before we get into the postseason. Keep those drums running, keep them marching, and raise up.
You've been listening to Baseball Biz. As always, you can find us on your favorite podcast directory, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and more. Thanks again, and remember, you can also check us out on Twitter at TheBaseballBiz. Take care and have a great week. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music rocking forward.